What is your true worth? I am not asking about what you think your worth is. I'm asking about your true worth. Because there's a difference between what you believe you are worth and what you are actually worth. So, what is the difference? Your perceived worth is shaped by human standards. This includes what others believe about you, your status, your income, your looks, your position, and even your pedigree. But your true worth, the worth that heaven recognizes, is determined by what you carry that is immortal, and that can be exchanged in eternity. Now, let me illustrate what perceived worth is. Imagine the Nigerian Naira saying, I know my worth. Of course, you hear the Ghanaian cedi saying, I know mine too. Then the US dollar boasts, my worth is high. The British pound adds, I am stronger than you all. That is all what they think about themselves. But pause for a second. What truly determines their worth? It is their exchange rate and their purchasing power that determines their true worth. So in the same way, no matter how confident we sound about our worth, our true worth is not self-declared. It is determined by the exchange rate of eternity, what remains after every other thing fades. Most people measure worth by asset, status, skills, fame, social media following, or good looks. But what happens when the bank collapses and the fire burns the house or the fame fades? Does that make a person worthless? Yes, if what drives that particular person is only the sense of your perceived worth. Many who have placed their hopes on their perceived worth have ended up committing suicide when those particular things they are placing their hopes on have been lost. If worth is measured by possession, then the moment a person dies, owing nothing, it becomes completely worthless. But that is absurd. Jesus settled this once and for all when he declared in the book of Luke chapter 12 verse 15. He says, watch out and guide yourself from every form of greed, because a person's life does not consist in the abundance of those things which he has. So, what determines a person's true worth? It's the state of the soul, that part of us that outlives the body. According to the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 7, it says, the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns back to God who gave it. And then something remains, the soul. Your body is like a clothing, beautiful but temporary. Your soul is the gold within. Gold, how? Let's imagine 3 bars. Bar A is made up of 80% gold, 20% impurities. Bar B is made of 40% gold, 60% impurities. And then bar C is 85% iron plated with 15% gold. So among these 3 bars, which of them do you think is the most valuable? Bar A, of course, because it is composed of more gold. So you see that the worth of bar A supersedes every other one because it has a higher composition of what? Of gold. Likewise, the value of a person is not in the glitter outside, but it is in the pure gold of what remains when life's furnace burns away the corruptible and perishable impurities. That gold part of man is his soul. It is the part of our existence that will survive death and pay for all that the flesh uses us to do. It is the state of that particular human soul that determines the true worth of that particular human. Because the soul, my soul, your soul, is the real you, is the real me. According to the scriptures, what are possible states or conditions of a soul? They include a generous soul, as can be seen in the book of Proverbs chapter 11 verse 25, a wretched soul, as can be seen in the book of Romans chapter 7 verse 24, a lean soul, as recorded in the book of Psalm 106 verse 15, a prosperous soul, as you can see in the book of 3 John chapter 1 verse 2, a weary soul, as is written in the book of Job chapter 10 verse 1, a thirsty soul, as can be seen in the book of Psalm 63 verse 1, a bitter soul, as can be seen in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 1 verse 10, a restless soul, as can be seen in the book of Matthew chapter 11 verse 29, also a sinful soul, as recorded by Ezekiel chapter 18 verse 4, an empty soul, as recorded by Isaiah chapter 29 verse 8, a restored soul, as can be seen in the book of James chapter 1 verse 21. Also you have a satisfied soul, as can be seen in the book of Psalm 107 verse 9. To better understand what we are talking about, let us look at 2 striking examples from the scriptures. The first one is that is recorded in the book of Daniel chapter 5 verse 27. It involves Belshazzar. Belshazzar was a mighty Babylonian king. He was rich, powerful feared, yet God wrote on the wall of his palace, Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. He was wealthy, famous, and powerful, but weightless in God's scale. There is a scale, God's scale. His soul lacked substance, reverence, and righteousness. There is indeed a heavenly scale that every soul will be weighed on. Now, not for gold or power, but for connection with divinity. It is the presence of divinity that determines the state of the soul. The second example is that of Solomon. Solomon began with a prosperous soul by seeking the face of the Lord. According to 1 Kings chapter 3 verse 9, he said, give your servant an understanding heart. But later, when his heart shifted, when his heart turned from God to idols, in 1 Kings chapter 11 verse 4, his soul became divided and his true worth declined. And in Ecclesiastes chapter 2 verse 11, he confessed, all was vanity and a vexation of the spirit. A man who had everything, yet his soul felt empty. But near the end, Solomon rediscovered the truth, where he said in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 13, fear God and keep his commandment, for this is the whole duty of man. He finally recognized that a restored soul is greater than a wealthy life. Have you watched the movie Snow White before? In this particular tale, the queen's worth was tied to her beauty until the mirror declared another person fairer. Her obsession reveals the worst lie: value measured by appearance, status, and comparison. Yet Snow White, pure in heart and kind in spirit, embodies true worth, the beauty of the soul. Like her, our true value isn't in the mirror of men's opinion, but in the reflection of God's truth. Outer beauty fades, inner beauty endures. Heaven's mirror doesn't say who is the fairest, but whose soul shines with love, faith, and obedience. How does one enrich the soul? In the book of Matthew chapter 4 verse 4, Jesus declared, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded from the mouth of God. Now, bread sustains the body, but God's word nourishes the soul. Your true worth will shrink even if your bank account grows. There are two systems that measure human worth. The first one is Satan's system and the system of this particular world. They measure worth by beauty, by fame, by power, and by wealth. But this worth expires at death. Then the second one is God's system. And this particular one measures worth by the state of your soul, your love for God, and your relationship with Christ, and your love for others. This particular worth endures beyond death, and it determines your eternal destination. So yes, you can be rich, you can be famous, yet in heaven's ledger, your soul reads Tekel, found wanting. Now, how do you increase your true worth? You do that by 1, investing in your soul. Spend more time with God, not just with your goals. Second, live by his word. Feed your inner man daily. Let the truth of God's word, not trend, define you. 3, love God and others deeply. Jesus summarized it all. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself, as written in the book of Matthew chapter 22 from verse 37 to 39. This is how your soul grows fat, full, and radiant with eternal worth. When you know your true worth, then and only then can you face life and even death with confidence. Like Paul, you can say, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain, as written in the book of Philippians chapter 1 verse 21, because you have invested where rust and moth cannot destroy, which is heaven's vault. So, what is your true worth? Your looks, your house, your degree, your fame, they all end in this particular world. But your soul, that is your eternal currency. Jesus asked, what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul? According to Mark chapter 8 verse 36. So yes, you know your worth. But today I ask again, what is your true worth?